Why did God choose Moses? Out of all the people he could have used, why him? Why choose a man who was born into slavery, yet raised in a palace that belonged to the enemy? Why choose someone with a broken identity, too Hebrew to be Egyptian, too Egyptian to be accepted by the Hebrews? Why would God call a man who had blood on his hands? Moses killed a man. He tried to hide the body. And when his secret was exposed, he ran, far from Egypt, far from his people, far from his calling. For 40 years he lived in the wilderness, not as a prince, not as a prophet, but as a shepherd, forgotten by Egypt, forgotten by man, maybe even forgotten by himself. So why would God speak to him through a burning bush? Why would the God of the universe call a stuttering, insecure, reluctant man to stand before Pharaoh, the most powerful king in the world? Why would God trust Moses to lead millions of Israelites out of bondage when Moses couldn't even believe in himself? Was it because Moses was strong? Number. Was it because he was righteous? Not exactly. Maybe God chose Moses not in spite of his weakness, but because of it. Maybe God wasn't looking for a flawless leader, but for someone humble enough to listen. Maybe God saw something in Moses that Moses couldn't see himself. A man who would need God every step of the way. A man who would understand what it meant to be broken because he had been broken. A man who would know the weight of a burden because he had carried his own for so long. God didn't need Moses to be perfect. He just needed Moses to be willing. But what about those doubts Moses had? When God spoke, Moses hesitated. "Who am I to stand before Pharaoh?" he asked. "Why me?" Moses even begged God to send someone else. Why would God choose someone who didn't think he was up for the task? Perhaps that was part of the plan all along, for Moses to know that his strength didn't come from within, but from the God who called him. Maybe God wanted Moses to wrestle with his insecurities, to fight against his own fears, so that when the time came, Moses would know without a doubt. It was God working through him, not his own abilities. And still, God didn't give up. He showed Moses signs, staff turning into a serpent, his hand becoming leprous and then healed, rivers of blood and plagues. And each miracle spoke louder than Moses' doubt. So was it about the miracles? Was it the signs that proved Moses was chosen? Or was it the fact that God, in his mercy, kept saying, "I will be with you. I will be with you"? God kept repeating that promise. And maybe that's what Moses needed to hear, that God wasn't asking him to walk alone. God wasn't asking Moses to be perfect. He was asking him to trust, to step out, to obey, no matter the fears, no matter the doubts. So why did God choose Moses? Maybe it wasn't about Moses at all. Maybe it was about God's power being displayed in human weakness. Maybe it was because Moses had seen the darkness of Egypt, the oppression of his people, and knew how deep the need for freedom ran. Perhaps God needed a man who understood what it was like to be forgotten, to be an outsider, to feel powerless, and could therefore lead others to freedom, not through his strength, but through God's. So the real question is, if God could choose Moses, what's stopping him from choosing you? What part of your story do you think disqualifies you? Your past, your flaws, your doubts, the things you've done wrong? Isn't it possible that God sees your story differently? That maybe like Moses, the very things you think make you weak are the things God can use to make you strong? So again, why did God choose Moses? Maybe the answer isn't just in Moses at all. Maybe it's in you, and the way God sees your heart, your willingness, and your trust. And perhaps like Moses, God is calling you to something you can't do on your own, but he will be with you every step of the way.